We followed the Silk Road into Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan on the way to Russia. Traders from Russia and Northern Europe used the Silk Road to meet their counterparts from China, the Byzantine and Persian empires, as well as from Pakistan and India. The Uzbekian cities, Bukhara, Samarkand, and Tashkent, were at some of the major crossroads of the Silk Road network. After a 3-hour border crossing where the Chinese were checking for outbound books, go figure, we entered Kyrgyzstan, which is over 90% mountainous, via the Toragut Pass at 3,547 meters above sea level. Today, the winding highways host truckload after truckload of scrap metal headed to Chinese factories. We stayed in a beautiful valley for our first night at a yurt camp near the Tash Rabat Mosque. The valley was home to many families and their herds. 6 of us shared the yurt, which was very comfortable and warm during the evening. The next morning, when it was cool, Ross, one of our Aussie friends, discovered that mountain mornings were a trifle cool compared to home. But neither the horses nor the herders seemed to mind that much. We stopped for a roadside bio break to the company of many crows. No wonder they were cawing, given the sights they saw that day. This country has hundreds of beautiful Muslim cemeteries. Incredible work. We explored the Issyk-Kul National Historic Site, aka State Museum, with its collection of many ancient petroglyphs. Our very young guide, along with his young helpers, gave a great explanation of the site and the carved images of deer or goats. This is just one of many locations, apparently, of similar artifacts in this country. Ruth made friends with the assistant and his baby sister. At Nairn, near Lake Issyk-Kul, which never freezes apparently, a family hosted us in their guest house, aka B&B. Very pleasant aside from the outhouse with a squat toilet. We stopped at the Barana Tower, built several hundred years ago by the king to protect his daughter from assassination, but a poisonous spider bit her and she died anyway at age 17. Sometimes Plan A just does not work. The site also has a Buddhist graveyard with many cemetery statues. At Bishkek, we arrived in time to stroll the main plaza and see the hourly changing of the guard. Men with big hats and big guns. A statue commemorates the mother of the nation's 40 tribes, who are symbolized by the 40 rays emanating from the sun at the top of the statue. Here the schools teach Kyrgyz, Russian, and English. We rose at 4 a.m. the next day for a 13-hour drive to Tashkent. This involved sharing the road with a herd of cattle. We had 2 aggravating border crossings, first into Kazakhstan, a land of policemen with big hats who like to stop out of country vehicles to extract a fine on the spot. Then we had a van breakdown, an impromptu picnic that was checked out by the locals. We saw many abandoned Soviet-era factories throughout the stands, which were probably the source of much of the scrap iron going into China. A few more stops later, we reached the border with Uzbekistan, and another multi-hour experience in the company of a wide variety of pushy locals. Some of the locals, though, were very interesting to look at in terms of their dress. Then we made it to the station in Tashkent for the overnight train to Bukhara. A little crowded, but nonetheless better after being on our feet at the border crossing. Our accommodation in Bukhara was the beautiful and hospitable Sasha and Son Inn. About 15 years ago, Sasha bought the 17th century house of a Jewish merchant. He proceeded to restore it and continued to buy adjacent properties until he had an inn with rooms for more than 40 people. The sunny courtyard with its decorative walls was a welcoming place for coffee after breakfast. Sasha had restored many of the decorations on the walls as well. They were beautiful. In Bukhara, we continued our visits to mosques, minarets, and madrasas, or colleges, and museums. The mosques had incredible tile and brick patterns both inside and outside. spite of the fact that at times we thought we were getting an overdose of these buildings, we never really did tire of the patterns on them. The many photos I took as testimony to that last statement. The 12-kilometer wall around the old city of Bukhara was built in the 1500s. It was 10 meters high, 6 meters thick, and had 11 gates. We went inside to see some of the old shops. Then we were back to lots more mosques and madrasas. Some of the mosques had lots of long, tall wooden pillars with decorations that were not changed, or at least that were different on every pillar. Many of these mosques and madrasas actually had bazaars inside and marketplaces. This particular one had some of the most intricate patterns that we saw on the whole trip. Ruth found a fan pattern that I'm to emulate at home one of these days. There were also coppersmiths, which was my interest, and the silk or the spice man, which was more of Ruth's interest. And she bargained for a dress here, which she successfully got, and she also bought a beautiful silk jacket. Then we had supper on a rooftop restaurant with a sunset view over an interesting skyline that included the ubiquitous satellite dish. But sunset over Bukhara was beautiful. Then off to more bus rides, which were great for Ruth to discuss felting and other fabric arts with her friend Claire. On our way to Samarkand, our bus had a flat tire. Perhaps we should have used the donkey option.